do that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
I reckon Ronald Reagan was onto something, you know. No people are free unless government is limited. Smaller the better, the way it should be. How are you, folks? I hope you have struggled through your Thursday and not found it too much of a struggle, quite frankly. It's getting a little bit wet after a very warm day where I am. We're about to get thunderstorms we've already had a bit of a one roll through. So you may see the power go off at some stage. If the show goes dark, that's why. Although I don't know, unless I get struck by lightning, it shouldn't be a problem. But we might start rocking around in the bus a little bit, and you might start hearing some rain noise. And if I see dripping from anywhere, I'll be leaping off and checking that out, obviously. It's been a while since I've been in and had a real chat in the chat, so to speak. So I thought tonight I'd kick off by saying hello to Deb, who was first in the road. That's Deb Shippard. I've got to get the ship part right, because you don't want to get your ships confused with your ships and other words, if you know what I mean. Hope you're doing all right, Deb, and life in your part of the world is, well, what would you want it to be at the moment? Not dry, I suppose, but sort of dry. I hope all the stripping's done. And that would be of the crops, not clothes, for anybody who is further interested. Tony, second in the room tonight. And the lovely Sandy. God, saw another short video today from the Good Samaritan Donkey Sanctuary. I don't know how you can make a lonely donkey look so friggin' cute. I just don't. May have something to do with the algorithm that places the heart-wrenching music and all that shit stuff behind it, but very good stuff. The Good Samaritan Donkey Sanctuary, of course, currently, I think, over 100. Last count, I think there was 108, or it might have been 103. At any rate, the number varies only slightly because occasionally some of the donkeys pass on, and less occasionally, some of them might find a new home somewhere else. But when I say less occasionally, once they generally get to the sanctuary, it's where they spend the rest of their days. So now, of course, if they do need to travel, they'll be traveling in style, thanks to their new mode of transport, which we all helped contribute toward. So GoFundMe page was set up, in case you don't remember, for a new donkey float. Who knew donkey floats were so freaking expensive? I mean, seriously. Anyway, fundraising has progressed for some months and quietly behind the scenes. And last weekend, I think it was, a new donkey float miraculously appeared on the farm. And that's the rescue float that they will use to go and get donkeys from just about anywhere on the East Coast. They travel all up and down. And if there is a donkey that's been left after somebody's passed on and the family don't want to look after it, or if indeed there are, mistreated donkeys, and that sadly is a case, many times it's the case, then Barry and Sandy will race off anywhere in the country to go and get them. And now they've got a safe float to get, I think it's up to 5 they can fit in that float. Might be 4, but might be up to 5. They can fit in that float and transport safely over the thousands of kilometers which they travel. So I just think that's bloody great. And thank you to everybody who contributed, both through the Voice of Freedom and the GoFundMe page that was set up as well. Everything, contributed. It was a wonderful, wonderful event, and the community came together and helped in the way that it did. Sandy and Baz, I know, are very thankful for it. Deb, has anybody seen the Sean Atwood video? Randy Andy's best mate is in a plane crash and is in ICU. I haven't seen Sean Atwood's video, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is shortly, from what I hear, may never see the inside of that new cottage that the King is building for him. Currently, he's in another property on the King's Sandringham, is it, estate? He is there until renovations are carried out at this other cottage. Those renovations could consist of quite a few things. The public are not likely to see Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, whatever they're calling him this month, again, unless the King allows his extradition from England to the United States. I don't know that the King plans on doing such things, and if Andrew did get sent over there, there's a big chance he wouldn't be coming back, not until he'd completed the prison sentence that he would likely get. So what's the King doing? Well, he's allowing investigators from the UK to interview and gain access to and, I guess, discover evidence of Randy Andy's past and some of the things that he's done, and more particularly who he's done them with. Whether or not they choose to share that with the Americans will be a whole different ballgame. You might, just like I say, royalty, particularly, the British royalty, have a history of locking up their embarrassments in the Tower. Remember? Locked up for years. The French used to do that too. Remember Man in the Iron Mask, I think it was? That's based on a true story from memory. I might be wrong there, don't quote me. But that's essentially what they used to do. They'd throw them in a deep, dark dungeon and chain them to a wall and leave them there until they died. They also did that with the ones that were born, walking with a lisp, so to speak. A lot of the inbreeding that went on through the royal families sometimes resulted in children that had serious mental problems, serious physical issues. And those children were quietly swept away and locked up in various different secret parts of the country on king's estates, so to speak. So expect something like that to happen to Andrew. You'll never see him again. He'll be able to ride a horse around Sandringham. It'll be a big prison, is all it'll be. And I guess his family will be able to visit him should they ever actually choose. Hello, Gomez. Nice to see you in. The Lady Rider. Love to have you in again, Rose. Good to see. I'm not sure if Vince is in the chat. I was talking to him earlier today and his battery was running a bit flat. So I thought by now he might have nodded off to bed. The wonderful Tony is in the house. Now, Tony sent me a very important picture earlier, so I guess we shall discuss it now or forever hold our pieces, so to speak. That is Tony's line. He's very proud of his line. It's a nice line. Every time I look at these lines and I say, well, there's a great line, I have the castle pop into my head. The movie? And Dale, the young son, who comes in and proudly says to his dad, Dad, I dug a hole. I get the feeling with that whenever I see a line. Don't ask me. However, that line is a very encouraging line for the silver price because it is projecting an upward trend, and we don't mind upward trends, not one little bit. Let's just have a bit of a glance at what the price is doing now that we're here. And 117.58 is what the spot price currently is. It bears absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to the price you can buy silver for. In fact, if you go to Ainsley, I think the cheapest you'll be able to find a 1 ounce silver coin like a Skippy or something that's there's a lot of. $150 plus, like $152, $53. Keep an eye on the price. It goes up, it goes down relative to the spot price, which unfortunately doesn't have any real bearing on the physical price. Now, Ainsley can only show you the spot price because that's all they have to go off. But in the physical world, where Ainsley and every other bullion dealer has to go out, source silver product to then turn to the refinery to get produced into product that then they can sell to the likes of you and I, but more importantly, product that goes to big investors, product that goes to industrial type investors, big businesses. And that is an awful lot of silver that they've got to find and project and do all that. And every ounce they sell to us, they have to go and buy another ounce to fill up the stocks again. So if they sell it to us, and let's say, they make $5 over the spot price, so call it $121 an ounce, they can't buy the replacement product for that. No bullion dealer in the world can currently. That's sort of the nature of this supply and demand squeeze that's being put on at the moment. And the disconnect is being shown proportionately across all markets. Now, for those following the stock market, and I don't claim to know much about it, so I could very generally be getting this quite wrong, the Australian stock market looks up in many, many senses, but then when you drill down into it, you find some of our major companies are taking huge losses. One of the big ones was yesterday, CSL. That is the Commonwealth Serum Laboratory. Now, this was a big new building being built in Melbourne. They had a big new CEO. I think he's been in the job a bit over a year. And who knew that the profits of the Commonwealth Serum Laboratory, which used to be part of the Commonwealth, the people used to own that. It was a scientific endeavour for the Australian people. It's now since been broken up and sold up as a private company, but it involves itself in some very interesting work and is affiliated with some very interesting companies that have a lot to do with blood products. A lot to do with blood products. Now, interestingly, many of the companies associated with blood products have been struggling over the last couple of years. And when I say struggling, some of them clean gone out of business. Some of them have had directors and bosses and owners quietly disappear. They've had heart attacks and strokes and car accidents and fallen off mountains, and all sorts of weird things have happened. But in Australia yesterday, the head of CSL, the new CEO, current CEO, was sacked by the board, driven out because their profits are way, way, way down. Now, there has been a lot of talk over the years about adrenochrome and the production thereof and where these sorts of things would take place. And there has been some mention, indeed, there has been some paperwork I have seen, which has alleged that CSL has been involved in some nefarious sorts of blood product investments. Now, whether that's been done locally here in Australia or overseas, I am unaware, and it's all alleged. I've got no proof to say this is what's happened. However, with the company showing such huge losses in profits and sacking the new CEO because he hasn't been able to turn those profits around, could it be because the nature of the market and where many of those profits were being derived from no longer exists? If you're following the Q and White Hat story, you would probably say, yep, that's fair. So keep an eye. The price of gold and silver, well, gold is actually sitting pretty well, a little over 7,000 Australian, and there is every chance it will continue to be going up. One of the great folks in our chat is Greg Waptha. He's a bit of a stacker and has been playing in the gold and silver market for a while, and I'm sure he'll be alternating between smiles and frowns at different times. Well, there he is. He's posted this up. I'm sorry, it appears that Waptha's had a stroke. I can't read that, brother. I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe you had one of the puppies walk across the keyboard. I'm sure you'll explain it. Anyway, I'm not into sports as much as I used to be, but Elvis Smiley has a superb swing. Oh, okay. All right. Who else is in here tonight? G'day, Kirk. Nice to have you in. And Aidy, is it? A-I-D-Y? Aidy Prive? Or Piv? Yeah. Anyway, first time the notification's been accurate. Well, all right. Well, there you go. A tick for the notifications. We never really have a lot of faith in the notifications, sadly. But if you hit the like button right now, it will help us a little bit. And if you're not subscribed, we would really love to have you join the family. And it really is a family, this show. We might talk about some weird things from time to time, and occasionally I might get angry, but I'm generally not yelling at you. So when I do start yelling, you'll know about it, though. Yeah, from the start of the show, if Reagan was onto something, George Carlin was on top of things way before his time. George Carlin was way before his time. In fact, there is all sorts of stories about George Carlin's white hat involvement back in the day. So we'll see how all that is. The lovely Sunflower is in the room. I hope you are doing well, and that Rick is doing good too. Scotty the News is in the house, and look, there's quite a few others who I probably haven't recognized. Bull's Nuts. The Agate Master is in. Been a little while. Nice to see you folks. Trying to scroll down, see if you've got any questions. Katie or Katrina Young, Dr. Eric Berg has come out to say he's a Scientologist and all monies from his supplements go to Scientology. Right. Okay. That might change people's minds on the supplements a little bit. Not sure. I guess if you think you're getting something good out of them, then yeah. Silver price was dropped due to JP Morgan caught with their pants down. Well, it wasn't just JP Morgan. I think Citibank were involved. Bank of America could well have been involved. Morgan Chase, I think, was involved. And they were all colluding to push down the price of silver on the 31st of January so that they suffered as little loss as possible. They allegedly put in a lot of sell orders, big number sell orders into the market, and then cancelled those orders just before they were due to be fulfilled on the day. Because there were so many sell orders in, it drove the price of silver down, like plummeted, as you saw. And when it hit the bottom of that market, all of those banks that I mentioned previously emptied out their shorts and got out of it. It cost them a lot of money, but it would have broken them if they didn't drive the price of silver down, because there were a lot of people demanding product and they could not fulfill those orders. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the background when it comes to the paper gold and silver figures, and some deals being done. Lots of people who have invested in futures, in silver and gold futures, have been contacted by their brokers and told, listen, we're going to buy you out. We're going to offer you a check, and here it is for the current, whatever today's spot price is. And they buy you out at that spot rate, the paper rate, which is not what you'd really want. You would like to collect the physical product, wouldn't you? Because the spot rate at the moment is like $83 US, but physically to buy it, it's going to cost you 103 or 4 US dollars, or in our case, 150. So hang on to it, whatever you do. Hang on to your silver, hang on to your gold, hang on, ride the bull, as they say. There is a lot of noise about how high it can go, and it would only be hopium. I can mention the prices. Are they realistic? Well, you're talking to somebody who collected his first coin about 3 years ago, so I wouldn't be listening to me about it. But I've taken a great deal of interest in the last few months in how this market works, and the trend is up, always up. Even when there are big drops like there were on the 31st of January, and that is from the highest of highs to, and it was a huge drop. It was like a $50 loss. 40% of the value of people's value disappeared overnight, which is a hell of a shock. Just disappeared. But it's bouncing back as the markets are beginning to show. Right now, if I show you this tab, this is the current market. So if I zoom it out a little bit here, you'll be able to see that while there are some red candles in there, and you can see the big drop that we had back on the 31st over here, That was a huge plummet down to here. It rebuilt itself, another little drop, another bigger drop down to here. But since then, on a daily basis, it has been rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. Each time it drops, it doesn't go back to the low below the lowest of the lows. So that keeps our upward trend going, and that keeps my heart hoping that the very small amount of silver that I've got is going to grow. And if we can get $500 an ounce for it, well, I'll be a very happy man. I'm sure you will be. If we can get $200 an ounce, I'm sure you'll be very, very happy. The question is, will you sell? Because many people who've got into this believe that, as you guys are saying, it's going to go a lot higher. And have you noticed that news is now starting to come out in mainstream media? There is stories about, it could go as high as 300. It could go as high as 500. I heard today that they did some sort of analysis. This is banking speak. They did some form of analysis that indicated that 50 years ago, the actual price of silver was at over $100 US. And the banks suppressed that and have kept suppressing it ever since. Why? So they can hide their debt. They can play this paper game with the markets and hypothecate metal. Hypothecation. We should do a show on that one night. I'd have to go back and learn all about it again. This is something that I learned about early on in my Voice of Freedom experience, when I ran across a gentleman who was very proud of the fact that he could hypothecate money, millions of dollars, and you didn't need anything to start with. I didn't quite understand it, but I did do some investigation into it post all of that. And what I found out is that it is a generally accepted way that financial markets and the ultra wealthy can take an asset and bet against it or bet for it, make money out of it, make it look like you actually have the same asset. That's what they run into with silver. If you use 1 bar of silver as an example, you might have left your bar of silver at the bank. Let's call it 1,000 kilo or 1,000 ounce bar of silver. You might have left it at the bank, and when you left it at the bank, let's say it was worth $10,000. I know it'd be worth a lot more, but let's say it was worth $10,000. I'm trying to keep the numbers fairly usable in my head. If you had that at $10,000 and you sold, actually, I might not go into this story because I think I'm only going to embarrass myself with my maths. And I embarrass myself in so many other ways, and I hadn't prepared to talk about any of that. I'm prepared to talk about a whole heap of other shit. And some of it has to do with these bastards, the CFMEU. Now, I've got the Victorian headliner up, but the CFMEU, of course, reside in New South Wales and Queensland. They populate all the most expensive building sites. And I know, because I have been contacted by some people who are inside the union who have been coerced, have been threatened, have been bullied, and have actually been in blues with union organisers because the union wanted things done a certain way. And that may have had something to do with work access or money being paid usually. And they ran roughshod over these work sites all over Queensland, but particularly on the Gold Coast. I have some wonderful stories from the build of the Gold Coast University Hospital. I have a lot more stories from the build of the Sunshine Coast University Hospital, where unions and alleged organized crime was rampant in the building industry. So this has been going on for years, and it's been going on at a federal level of coordination. Why do you think I'm saying federal when all the evidence points to states? Well, it's because you don't get the kind of support that Anthony Albanese can give you if you're just doing state stuff. And Anthony Albanese and the Federal Labor Party always get their slice. Have no fear. Headline out of the Herald Sun in Victoria today, dirty, rotten disgrace, and ain't that the bloody truth? Jacinda Allen has so many questions to answer regarding her advice, what she knew, what she didn't know, and when she knew or didn't know it, regarding the inquiry into what appears to be a completely corrupted building industry in Victoria, particularly for Big Build Victoria, where the Labor government, God love them, have always been very good at spending money, have decided to go out and spend a great deal more of it on things that may or may not be useful to the public. But what they will be useful to is filling the pockets of criminals and union organisers and organised criminals with billions of dollars. Now, the inquiry has found, or the inquirer, shall we put it that way? The inquirer found that the Victorian state government knew that there was huge amounts of rorting going on. I think if an inquiry was conducted into Queensland at the time of the build, particularly of the university hospitals, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, they would find exactly the same and probably, well, certainly similarly worse on those sites and others throughout Queensland. What they've done in Victoria is infiltrate every level of the building industry, and for some reason and with some leverage have been able to apply extra fees to the tune of at least $15 billion, but it could be as much as $30 billion on Victorian projects. This is the people's money that has been happily handed over by one Labor criminal to the next and to the next and to the next. And there is exactly what the Victorian Premier thinks of the Victorian people. In fact, she probably thinks that of the entire nation, but small-minded folk, she likes to just have to protect Victoria and the interests of her and her criminal cohorts inside the Labor Party. Truly disgusting. And Victorians, I mourn for you. How on earth are you going to deal with the filth, the deep levels of corruption that are clearly evident in your state? You are communist Victoria. I know the people in there aren't, but you are being run by a communist organization, a communist corporation, I should say. How do you feel about that? And do you feel that, we just can't do anything more about it? I don't think that's the case. I think you can do more about it. And an election is coming to Victoria in the next, I think it's within the next 12 months. One Nation are going to be making more announcements about people coming to One Nation. And I believe it is their intention to run people in every seat in Victoria for the Victorian state election. Now, I go back to, and I know that this flies in the face of what many people in the Freedom movement have been saying for some time, and that is you can't vote your way out of this. And I am one of these people, all right? Hold my hand up, 100%. But I also like to think of myself as a fairly practical and logical kind of human being. And while I have been known to beat my head against brick walls repeatedly for a stupidly long period of time, what that has taught me is that the wall doesn't move and I get a big lump on my head. It hurts. My ears ring. And sometimes my eyes go blurry. No, I'm not having an orgasm. It really hurts. So we don't want to play that game in any way, shape, or form. We need to wipe out the filth and the corruption in the political ranks. And we all agree with that. But I think now we are all starting to realize that it is not only the political ranks that are causing these problems. These problems are buried deep and hidden in the bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy in Victoria is black-hearted evil. It is the only way that you could describe a bureaucracy that terrorizes its people the way that this one does. Who are the people that come up with the lockdown laws? Who are the people that come up and write the words that they turn into law? It's not these people we elect, as we're about to find out. Because the people that we elect into these places have no more experience at being a parliamentarian or doing parliamentary things or running countries than you or I do. And yet, for some reason, we blindly place our trust in these people, like Jacinta Allen, who, if I had to take a stab in the dark, would say never has worked a day in her life outside of being in a union, being an organizer, being a student young Labor person, and getting into politics, probably as a staffer and moving up from there. Now, that is the story of Labor politicians for the most part. And that is, in part, how we get to the story of tonight's show. An ex-political staffer, an ex-union rep, and an ex-lawyer walk into a parliament. And how badly do you think they can screw up a country? If you own a business and you've had to employ people, you've probably sat down and assessed person after person after person against a range of things that you would find appealing in someone you wanted to hire into your business. One of those things that you might find most appealing might be experience. Do you think? I certainly think experience would be high on my list if I was interviewing for a job in a particular field. This bloke is currently the Australian Treasurer. His name is Jim Chalmers. Now, Jim Chalmers has a beautiful smile. He seems like a reasonable speaker in the public. He just happens to play for a team that has no interest in looking after the people of this nation and every interest in looking after the communist interests of the socialists that back this. But we have him in charge of the Treasury of Australia. He's the one that comes up with the budget. He's the one, at least, that stands there and reads it. But do you think that he actually comes up or has a great deal to do with it? Well, let's find out. What did he do before he got into Parliament? What did he do before he got into politics that would qualify him to be the Australian Treasurer? You know, the guy that has all the money, all the purse strings, and needs to figure out that we need more coming in than we have going out for us to be a successful nation. That's at the heart of what the Treasury is. You just need to do the maths that we bring more money into the nation than we send out of it. And if we can balance that, we're going well. So it's a concept even I can understand. Jim Chalmers, however, was a senior political staffer. He served as the Chief of Staff for the Deputy Prime Minister and Treasurer Wayne Swan, God help us, between 2010 and 2013. And he was also the Deputy Chief of Staff for Kim Beazley. Do you think this bloke knows where the secrets are hidden, folks? You can be bloody sure of it. But does he know how to run a country? So could Jim Chalmers, being given our Treasurer's position, be some kind of payoff for helping, let's just say, assisting when he was a senior political staffer for the Prime Minister and Treasurer Wayne Swan, Deputy Prime Minister, I should say. He would have had access to a great deal of information, certainly would know where all the bodies were, and would know how to keep them protected. But better than that, he goes back to Kim Beazley days. And then he was involved in the Chifley Research Centre, which is a think tank. And you know what think tanks are all about, don't you? And then prior to that, he got a political science degree. Congratulations. But where did he go with it? He fell straight into the arms of Queensland Premier Peter Beattie, where he learned firsthand at the hip of a master just what you need to do to be a successful Labor politician. And here he is, very successful. Hasn't got to the bloody Treasury without knowing anything. He knows something. He just knows nothing about how to run a fucking country. More taxes paid in beer consumption than taxes paid by gas exporters. Absolutely 100%. Wino, 100%. We pay more money in beer taxes than the Australian government extracts from nations that accept the big corporations that rape our country of the natural gas that we have and send it overseas. You'll probably be quite offended, as I was, to learn that part of the reason that they give our natural gas away is part of a trade deal. You know, you'll take our wheat or you take our whatever. We don't produce too bloody much these days. And we'll give you X amount of free amounts of LPG. And that, in many cases, is how it works. The gas companies use it as a benefit to sell other products. That's just an add-on. The Australian people get absolutely nothing out of it. I think the figure was $1.2 billion in tax revenues gained. That is effectively nothing in an industry that exports hundreds of billions of dollars worth of our natural gas out of our land every year. Every year. That's something that needs to be addressed. But do you think our federal treasurer will be able to do that? I mean, I'm not standing for treasurer. Please don't. Thank you, Sandy. That means a lot. Thank you so much. If I was going to stand for treasurer, on the basis of what I see out of appointees from the Labor Party, I'd stand a very good chance. Would you want me as treasurer for this country? Of course you friggin' wouldn't. I would have to rely on the advice of bureaucrats. This is where we fall down. And I think both sides of politics are guilty of this. They appoint people who have no skills to areas where they need skills. Yes, there might be people within their cohort that have the skills, but you don't put that person who has the skills into the area they are skilled in, because that would be functional. They might look at something and say, that could be done better, that could be done cheaper, that could be done faster. That's why it's very rare that you get somebody from the ex-military as the defense minister, or at least anybody who was on the ground in the military. You probably find one or two officer types, and Hasty being one of those, who wanted a political career. They're political soldiers, those ones. They fight a different kind of battle every day. But, don't let me get started. Let's move on. This particular piece of filth is known as one of the bad girls of the Labor Party. She and that piece of work, Penny Wong, and there was another piece of work that were involved in hacking Linda Reynolds to pieces. That's a Liberal Party. She thinks she was Defence Minister, who had spent most of her life in the Defence Force from memory. She knew a bit about it. Just saying. They hacked that woman to pieces, made up lies, and got the media on side, got the pack on side surrounding the whole Brittany Higgins saga and the alleged rape that happened inside Parliament House. The rape that a man was found not guilty of in a criminal court, but found guilty on the balance of probability, or the balance of public opinion, or the balance of media perception, is a better way of putting it, inside a civil action brought by her later on. Not getting into him at all. I don't like the bloke, don't trust the bloke, and he's currently on, I think, alleged of committing 2 rapes in a Queensland strip club, Toowoomba, and standing charge on at least one of those charges at the moment. So I don't have a feeling of goodness about the bloke any way or the other. But what they did, and that Katie Gallagher cow, this piece of white skeleton here, what they did was schoolyard bullying tactics at their absolute best. They were disgusting. And, of course, the Labor Party protected them, as they always do. Now, this piece of work is the Minister for Women. She's also the Minister for Government Services. I want you to think about that. The Minister for Government Services. She is the Minister for Finance. She is the Minister for the Public Service. And she is the Manager of Government Business in the Senate. Now, what sort of control does Katie Gallagher wield inside the Labor Party? Immense control. And what sort of knowledge does she have to be the Minister, to be the Minister for Government Services? Forget that. If she's the Minister for Finance, she's clearly got a detailed knowledge of finance. No. Okay, all right. What about Minister for the Public Service? Well, yes, she was in the public service before she became a politician. In fact, she grew up in Canberra. So where else was she going to go and work? She began life as a social worker. You know, when I was going to high school, we had a social worker, and I figured out then that social worker, I'm not saying they're all like this, but that social worker was somebody who was too lazy to go and to get a psychology or a psychiatric degree. But they were a sticky beak and just wanted to find out and learn about other people's problems. I learned at a very early age not to trust social workers in high school for a variety of different reasons. But she was a social worker and got to hear everybody's problems, I'm sure, which then fired her up to do what all good social workers want to do. They want to help. They want to fix things. So what did she become? A union organizer in Canberra. And what union did she become an organizer for? The Community and Public Sector Union, the union that fills the public service. Do you think she might know where a few of the bodies are buried? And do you think that might be why she has not one, but is it 5 portfolios? Minister for Women, which she clearly is, and she's a bully. She knows how to be the bitch among the other bitches, the gang of 3, and I think it's a bit bigger than a gang of 3 in the Labor Party, I can tell you. But she probably qualifies for that, Minister for Women. The Minister for Government Services. Well, going from social work to union organising inside the public service, she probably knows exactly where all the bodies are buried. Minister for Finance is a ripper, though. That particular ministry comes with a great deal of power. So, too, does the Ministry for the Public Service. The public service are the public servants. These are the creatures that I talk about when I say we have to clean them out. It is the Australian Public Service. Not everybody in it, I don't believe, is corrupt. But I would be very surprised if anybody underneath her rank and above lackey isn't. So she might be the only one who is qualified. But what a piece of filth it is. However, Labor have a stock in trade in filth, don't they? Chris Bowen. Well, he's been Minister for all things over many, many years, hasn't he? You would have thought that given he's currently the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, he may have had some input into, climate, energy, or something like that. But in standing with Labor practices, they employ somebody in a job that knows absolutely nothing and has no background in the job and expect them to do, well, I think they expect them and get exactly what they pay for. They expect for them to get shit, and they get shit. It's what the people expect and don't get. That's what they've got to argue about over election times. Anyway, 2004, Chris Bowen was a local government councillor, and he was the mayor of Fairfield in Western Sydney. He's got a Bachelor of Economics that he graduated from Sydney University with. Why isn't he the treasurer then? He'd have more of an understanding of the economics than the bloody fool that's doing it, wouldn't he? Would you really want him as treasurer? Did we have him as treasurer in the past? That might have been too. He's a rotten piece of work either way he works. He worked as a staffer. Here we go again. A staffer for New South Wales State Minister, a union official, and he was president of the Western Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a great stepping stone and a historical reference into those Western Sydney seats, which are now being fully populated with people who come from other countries and are being fast-tracked through to vote for Labor. I think you've seen the meme. They are importing enough voters to keep themselves in power. It's very hard for us to fight against that unless those of us who don't vote stand up this time and push One Nation, it looks like. You may not like the idea of supporting One Nation in this fashion, but hear me out. If that tsunami wave of support is still raging 18 months from now and Albanese is ready to call an election, then it is, without doubt, the first, last, and greatest opportunity we, the people, will have to dash the Labor, Liberal, National, Greens corporations to pieces against our Australian shoreline with a wave of support with One Nation. Yes, I know, once that One Nation wave washes over the country and then starts to pull back, there's going to be a lot of shit sucked out and sent out to drown in the sea, hopefully, all those political parties. But then we're going to be left with a big drain on knowledge, a big drain on the public service. And there may be some knowledge that's lost forever, because we do know that the public service, we've seen it inside Donald Trump's and Biden's regimes, the public service can go back into its shell for 4 years if it doesn't like the politician that got elected, if it doesn't like the party that got elected. This happened some years ago with the mining companies here in Australia. Labor jacked up a mining tax. They decided they were going to put some huge multi-billion-dollar tax on coal as it was pulled out of the ground, and the companies said, well, okay, that's great, you can go and introduce that tax. And that made everybody in Australia feel really, really good, because the Labor Party had gone and put this huge tax on the miners and said, you know, you pull out over X amount of million ton a year, you're going to pay this huge royalty or this fee or whatever. And the miners said, yeah, okay, cool, that's great. And they didn't dig it out of the ground. That's the thing about wealth that's still buried in the ground. You just leave it there, right? You own it. You don't have to take it out and sell it. And you just outlive the politician that's trying to get their fingers onto it, or the money that you can generate out of it. And that's exactly what they did. And there was a change of government. And what do you know? The Liberal Party didn't abide that law at all. That one got repealed pretty quickly. That's the nature of things, I guess. This little piece of filth is something I've always been, well, it makes my stomach churn. You would think, given his passion for the environment when he's on display at Senate estimates, that Murray Watt, a senator for Queensland, has been a very passionate environmentalist, should I say bordering on green, from his very early days in school. But like most Labor stories, that'd be a lie. No, Murray Watt was a lawyer. Yep, a lawyer. For 2 decades, he was a lawyer. And he specialized in employment law. Not environmental law, employment law. And who did he work for? Well, he worked for Maurice Blackburn. And if you're not aware, the Labor Party have a couple of favoured law firms. The ambulance chaser ones are Maurice Blackburn and Slater and Gordon. These law firms make considerable money through the unions. They represent not only the unions at times, but the union members who occasionally might have had an accident, might have slipped down, might have cut their hand on a stubby as they were opening it at 2 hours before knockoff one Friday afternoon, and require a compensation payout. They're the lawyers, Maurice Blackburn and Slater and Gordon, who Julia Gillard used to be part of and was very successful at, managed to become a partner of, all because they're very good at law. And in his case, very good at employment law, how to rip people off. He was protecting companies not wanting to pay staff proper prices. Maybe he might have protected the odd person who was being underpaid. I shouldn't put words in my mouth. But at any rate, Maurice Blackburn is not what you would call an auspicious law firm in this country. It is known for ambulance chasing and its love of labour, anything. And in Victoria, I can tell you there are many, many, many deep, dark veins of evil that stretch between that law firm and Julia Gillard and her ex-boyfriend and a great deal of Victorian Labor politicians. Where did he learn how to be a sleaze of a politician? You won't believe this. He used to be the chief of staff to Anna Bligh. You go from being a lawyer for 20 years at a Labor law firm to being Anna Bligh, Queensland Premier's chief of staff. He was also a policy director for the Queensland government while Labor were involved. And didn't that get us a long way? Speaking of getting a long way, the funeral director's having a few problems today. Susan Ley has, had it laid clear and bare that she is failing as leader of the Liberal Party in this country, and it can't go on. I think it was 7 ministers resigned today from very early this morning to just before question time. And, of course, there's going to be a spill tomorrow. I thought if we were going to criticise a few of these morons in the Labor Party, and, who's more moronic, them in the Labor Party or we for electing and even thinking that people who've never worked a business in their life, not a day, could run a country. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, the White Lady funeral director, Susan Ley, now before she went into federal politics in 2001, she had a pretty diverse sort of a career, I've got to say. She is a very, very intelligent lady. She was working as a commercial pilot. She was working as an air traffic controller. She's worked as a shearer's cook. She's been in a dairy/livestock farming partnership for 17 years. She knows a bit about the land and what's required on the land. She's also worked for the Australian Taxation Office and got numerous degrees in economics, accounting, and in tax law. I would have thought she stacks up qualifications-wise better than anything in the Labor Party I've just shown you. And I could have gone to Albo and shown you him, but there's no point. You all know that Albo went to university as a Labor stooge, got out of university as a Labor stooge, continued as a Labor staffer stooge, and bled his way into the Labor Party, I think by natural attrition more than anything else. It certainly wasn't on merit, unless, and it's highly possible during the Bob Hawke years, they identified stupidity and promoted it. That's exactly how he got in. God. Anyway, they're going to get rid of her and they're going to replace her with him by the look of it. Who is him? Him is Alex Taylor. Now, I thought that Alex Taylor had served in the military. That isn't the case. Pardon me. Prior to getting into politics, he's worked as a management consultant and was very active in agribusiness. So agribusiness for me is anything from growing crops to owning drones and spraying them, or being a crop duster or something like that. I don't think he was involved in anything like that. He was first elected to Parliament in 2013, and one of the things that probably concerns me most is that he was made an assistant minister under the Turnbull government in 2015, and then appointed Minister for Law Enforcement and Cybersecurity in 2015 as well. What does he know about law enforcement? Well, nothing, but you do need to know the difference between good and bad, right and wrong. And I have no reason to suggest to you that Angus Taylor, based on his history or anything I've learned about him, is anything else but an upright, man who knows the difference between right and wrong. The Labor Party, I'm sure they know the difference between right and wrong. I just think they've got the morals of an alley cat and don't give a shit. They do what's right for them. So do I think that the Liberal Party, with either of those leaders, would do better for the people of Australia? Potentially. Once again, I think it all comes down to the public service and what those bureaucrats are going to hold you to. The binding agreements that were made before you were even in there. Oh, we can't do it, Minister, that way because it's always been done this way. Oh, no, you can't sign that off, Minister, because it was signed off before your time by somebody else. Bullshit. If you were elected to this Parliament, you can change any law you like. Don't let the bastards tell you different. And I don't think that this fella is going to let the bastards tell him anything at all. James Patterson strikes me as probably one of the strongest performers that the Liberal Party have. It's a bit of a pity because he's going to be wasted. He's in the Senate. I don't know, may or may not make a good Prime Minister, but he's in the wrong house for that. He is, however, a kingmaker. He is a big numbers player in the background here. And when you watch him in estimates, part of the reason that I am watching estimates is because Senator Bragg, and of course the One Nation senators are doing some bloody great work in estimates at the moment, trying to keep the bureaucrats honest. And it is trying. They are trying to make the bureaucrats honest. The bureaucrats don't want to be honest. They want to tell you half the truth or a bit of the truth or maybe all of it, but you're going to have to fight and ask 15 different people 3 different ways before you find the truth. That's how they work. So where did this bloke come from before he got into politics? Turns out, think tank leadership, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, which is a think tank for conservatives. I've always wondered about these think tanks. I'd love to get inside one and see who's doing the thinking, but I don't get invited. Policy and advocacy. He worked with the Victorian Employers Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he was a political staffer who worked for Mitch Einfield before he died as well. So this is the bloke who's probably come through university, done the political science degree. He's always been focused on getting into politics and conservative politics by the look of it. So if I had to weigh all of them up against each other, I would say that he was probably, without having run a business, personally owned a business and run a business, he's probably the least prepared. However, when you look at what he has done and working with the Victorian Employers Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Victoria, they're a very active organisation, and he would have been very active in helping businesses take advantage of what the Chamber of Commerce and Industry can offer. So he would certainly bring those skills to the table. I only bring them up because really, are any of them qualified to do what we need done in this country? And while it's wonderful for us to say Pauline Hanson's riding a wave of success and there is a tsunami of support coming and it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be great, and we'll get her elected. Well, let's just say that happens. At the moment, there are, 4 of them in Parliament? If we elect them, there's going to be something like 140 of them or more in Parliament. These are people who, until drawn together by One Nation, had never met. They have never sat never shared a meal, never had a conversation, never developed common ideals, haven't been able to identify morals, standpoints, perspectives of others until they get to that place. Then, who are we electing? Well, the good people of your particular part of the world might elect Big Jim, who's a farmer, who's very vocal about all the evil things that have been happening in the world. He's very passionate about his country, his state, and his local people. He's a farmer. He's been working in the land all his life. Family have been it, 5th generation farmer, but knows his shit. He gets elected. But then we get 3 or 4 other blokes like him elected from the agricultural realm. Let's say Wade Northhausen got arrested, and God bless Wayne. Wade, I trust he's getting better. But as an example, farmers of that ilk are elected, real doers. Which one do you pick? And do you give them agriculture and cattle and all that sort of stuff? Or do you give them cybersecurity? Do you make who would you put in charge of the public service? Right? Who would be the minister for that public service? You'd have to have someone who knew the public service but was on our side so that they could call the public servant out on the bullshit that they would try and spin over someone in that position. Unless, of course, they're working closely with them, which is exactly what's happening now, regardless of which arm of the uni party is in power. So how do we replace those people? How do we get the talent into the right positions, even if we do push One Nation on a tsunami of support over the line to govern this country? What sort of experience, what guarantees do we have that the leadership of the party will put that experience to good use in the right areas? Has Pauline spoken about this? No, I don't think so. I could be wrong. James Ashby is speaking a bit recently. I've seen him on Sky News and a few other things. I might send James a message. I've got his number, and see whether or not he'll come on this show. And that could be something we could have a bit of a chat about. I do think that One Nation will be transparent. I do think that they will be accountable to a point. And this is, I'm not saying that they're going to hold back. I'm saying the point is going to be a new place. And we're all going to have to find that new place together, because there's likely to be some resistance from the public service about giving us the whole truth and nothing but the truth, if you know what I mean. So anyway, just those things to bear in mind, something to think about. And if you are considering running, putting your hand up for One Nation, and God love you for doing it if that is the case, then please consider what you bring besides a desire to help your community, make Australia great again, and do the right thing. What skills, what business are you in where you feel you could walk in to that ministry and take a very good go at running it, and running it efficiently? Please, God, tell me somebody amongst you there knows how to fix this bureaucracy. Please, God, tell me there's one of you out there who knows how they hide it, where the tricks are, where to look, and how to expose it. And please tell me there's one of you out there that is prepared to hold them to account for it. I know I am, but about the only thing you could put me in charge of is communications, maybe. And I couldn't say I know everything about that, but I probably know a damn side more about it than the dickhead who's currently in charge of communications. I didn't even bother looking that one up. FBN has just interviewed Kim Hanton for One Nation in Elizabeth in South Australia. And the man who did all the interviewing is sitting in his newly redesigned orifice, by the look of it. So I will bring up the waving wonder himself very quickly. Hello, buddy. How are you?
Hey, mate, I'm watching you on that screen, so my head's turned sideways. How are you?
Yes. Very good.
Yes,
So you've chatted with Tim Hanton. When's that going up?
I'm in the middle of uploading it right now to YouTube. It will come up on Rumble after I've done that, because I also wanted to try and moderate and not wipe out my bandwidth. So, yeah, very good 30-minute interview with a key set of questions. So if anybody's sort of wanting to see the caliber of people, well worth having a look. So
Excellent. So that's for the South Australian election, which is coming up on March 21st from memory, is it?
yep, 21st or 27th. I think it's 21st. Yeah. So
And have you had any advances to maybe contact all, however many One Nation people there are, and the other people running? How many you are intending to talk to?
I would like to get to as many as possible. I've had one knockback from an independent here in Hammond. Rob Roylance, which is a One Nation candidate, is going to do one. At this stage, our local mayor, who's running for Labor, is going to do one. The Liberal guy is going to do one. So they say. They haven't one of them hasn't replied yet. But there is 51 candidates for One Nation running in South Australia, right? So that's 47 for the lower house and 4 for the upper house.
Okay.
Right. And we only have 47 seats in the lower house. Just saying.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah,
it will be the litmus test for the country. So be interesting to see what happens. And it will be a great litmus test, because if you can sweep One Nation to power in South Australia, you'll get a good idea of how they can readjust and maybe attack that public service before we have a federal opportunity to do it. Thank you, Pipe Master, for your sticker. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful of you. Hey, Carl, you're still heading to South soon? Yes, I am very definitely coming, Robert. When I say very definitely, I can't give you a date yet, but the plan was to come to Victoria late February or early March. I've still got to get the bus registered. Donna and Peter from the Corruption Whistleblower are doing another grand jury indictment, which you might recall I went down to Canberra and did with them last February from the Senate Garden, which was a bit of a surprise to those people at Old Parliament House. But this one will be in Melbourne. It will be much larger. In fact, they're expecting a couple of thousand people at this one, and that indictment will have a lot more to do with, I think, what's going on in Victoria as well. And from there, the plan will be via a few stops, I'm sure, to come to visit Vince in Mannum in South Australia. And I will probably catch up with my daughter at some point in Western Victoria. And if you are at all interested, folks, we want to get to Wayno's place at the Stony Creek Bush Camp at Wilmington. And I'm very keen to try and put together some sort of RC remote control car challenge or a slot car challenge, because he has a slot car race set there.
Yeah.
And,
speaking of which,
oh yes,
you need to download some of the stuff on Contrib that he's put up there.
Oh, roger that. All right, I'll be into that and check it out. Speaking of things too that we should check out, and I haven't actually shown you yet, and I know I'm running late, but here is how it is. We have some new things that Vincenzo has been doing on our website. The shop, of course, at merch.vofhq.com. We now have mugs, amongst other things. That is the FBN mug, but there is a Voice of Freedom mug that you can get as well. We also have caps, which I reckon this FBN cap has just come up a bloody treat. But you can pick your colors, do whatever you like there. And the prices are pretty good, $21.50 for the trucker hat. So I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. If you want to get a hat, there's a few more different ones there. There's a Voice of Freedom one there. There's I think my head hat is there, the cartoon head. So we're adding little bits and pieces as we go. And if you would like to help us then you can do that. We get a little bit out of each sale. So head off to merch.vofhq.com and check it out. Get yourself a shirt. I'm getting 2 shirts. I should have them in a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. I ordered a week ago, so they did say it would take 3 weeks all up. So we'll see. I got a message that said they're on the way. So I'll show you what they're like. And if sizing is always a thing, you always worry about sizing. So I've got a couple of shirts that are the same size, and if they are too small on me or too big on me, then we'll be giving them away on the show, and you'll get use of them while I go and find some that actually fit one way or the other. But I don't know that I took much notice of what sizes I was buying when I did the order, because I was just so excited at Vince's handiwork.
Yeah, we've also got their Land of the Fee T-shirts are now there. They're cheaper and direct if you want to do that. And don't forget, please do not forget, we have Anzac coming up in a little while, and there is always the flag. You burn the flag, we'll wear it. I think that needs to go all over Australia.
Yeah, I agree. You burn the flag, we'll wear it. That's what it looks like. And you can get it on a shirt. You can get it on a cup. You can get it on a cap.
Once I put them up there.
Once he puts them up there. But, yeah, you burn it, we'll wear it. And I'm still looking for that flag ready to burn in reciprocation, should we say. All right. Have you had enough, Vincenzo?
Yep, I'm uploading. Oh, I can disappear and say goodbye all.
That's Vincenzo saying goodbye all. Go off to FBN and check out the chat with South Australian attempted politician Kim Hinton, who's just completed that interview with Vince. It'll be uploading and ready to go. Call it in half an hour or so. If you're in South Australia, I urge you to watch that series, and it might help you decide where you should put your vote, especially if you're one of the people like me who hasn't done it in a few years and you really don't know the players in the game. I can't emphasize it enough. I think this is the opportunity to smash the uni party in every state and federally. But be careful what we wish for. We need quality people with One Nation who can get up and do the job. We need people who can talk on defence. We need people who can talk on foreign affairs. We need people who can talk on health. We need people who can talk on mining and energy. We need people who can talk on agriculture. Let's hope One Nation can provide them. And let's hope that whatever happens, we can get a bit of a rein in on our immigration. Because without the brakes going on immigration, nothing is going to change in this country. And all we're going to get is more dickheads on the road. Have a good one.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!